Just before I left for Austin, I took my family to the Smoky Mountains. Now, long before the Europeans named it the Smoky Mountains, the Cherokee had a name for it, and if I pronounce it correctly, it's something like Shakonoquay, which means place of the fine particulate smog. No, not actually. That's what the EPA wants you to think. I was surprised to see this graphic on the EPA's site where they explain what PM 2.5 is. They use the Smoky Mountains as a poster child. Is it really PM 2.5 and man-made smog that makes the Smoky Mountains smoky? No. We all know that it isn't, but we see this kind of thing done over and over again, like they did with polar bears on ice floes. Remember that? And of course, Al Gore is telling us that the oceans are rising, but he builds his $9 million mansion in Montecito, California, right on the ocean side. So I don't think he believes that either. But they use these subliminal messages to try to convince us, and they can be quite effective. And speaking of bears, every visitor to the Smoky Mountains gets a handout that looks like this, warning you about black bears. As my wife was reading that to the small children, I started thinking a lot of the stuff they were saying about bears could be said about government, especially about the EPA. Let me just read a few things here. With aggressive behavior, the bear, the EPA, is demanding more space. If the bear or EPA continues to follow you, stand your ground. If the EPA gets closer, talk louder or shout at it. Act aggressively. Act together as a group if you have companions. Make yourself look as large as possible. Don't run, don't turn away, and don't feed the EPA. It only encourages further problems. David Knight for InfoWars Nightly News.
I'm Darren McBreen with InfoWars Nightly News, and I'm here today at the Texas State Capitol, and we're about to find out if the people of Austin are aware that they are about to be hit by a wave of utility bill hikes as new EPA regulations drive up the cost of energy.
What do you think about paying higher utility bills because of the EPA's new regulations against power plants?
You know, there may be some new regulations coming up against power plants at this point, but unfortunately right now I think that our citizens statewide and nationwide basically overburdened, especially with today's economic developments and situations that are going on. I think rate hikes should be at a minimal to at least try to alleviate some of the burden on our taxpayers and our citizens nationwide and statewide.
I know a lot of people that are going to be not only shocked but a little bit irritated about that as well. Sure. I mean, they're already, because it's such a hot summer.
Exactly.
You know, everybody's bills is already out through the roof.
You're already paying through the roof because the ACs are running nonstop, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, on top of that, and with the downturn economy, yeah, it's doesn't seem to jive that well.
Of course, I don't want to pay higher utility bills. They're already extremely high right now as it is.
Well, I don't want to pay more because of the carbon dioxide thing. That doesn't seem right, especially if it's not even proven.
Generally, I prefer regulations that deter pollution and paying a little bit more for that than an unregulated environment.
It all has to be regulated some way, right? It's going to mess our environment up.
I understand the tax on carbon footprints, but I mean, who's getting a new Lexus, you know what I mean?
Do you think that carbon dioxide is dangerous?
I think carbon dioxide can be very dangerous.
Okay, what do plants breathe?
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah, I think carbon dioxide is definitely dangerous. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any like rules and laws to prevent it being.
What do plants breathe?
Okay, folks, those are some excerpts from InfoWars Nightly News Reports. We are live. It is the 24th day of October 2012. Giant broadcast lined up. Court rules. You will let the TSA drag your children off to dungeons, or you'll be put in jail. I'm serious. We'll be right back. Insider billionaire investors like George Soros and John Paulson have recently made massive moves into gold, purchasing what Bloomberg News described as gold hoards. Soros alone doubled his holdings in a single day. Russia's Vladimir Putin has doubled down on gold, increasing the country's holdings by over 100%. With $1.8 trillion under management, the bond king Bill Gross, the world's preeminent bond fund manager at PIMCO, has warned investors of the dangers of QE3 and inflation. And what's he betting on? You guessed it, gold. Friends, this is Alex Jones for MidasResources.com. For more than 15 years, I have exclusively used Midas Resources for all my precious metal needs. Whether it's bullion or collectibles you're looking for, Midas Resources is simply the best. I own my gold as a hedge against inflation. This Federal Reserve fiat currency could go the way of the Deutschmark and the Weimar Republic anytime. In these historically dangerous times, it makes sense to physically hold gold and silver. Midas already has some of the best deals in the industry. But if you give them a call and mention the radio special, they will give you a list of the day's super specials. Midas brokers are standing by to answer all your questions at 800-686-2237. They also have a lot of informative free literature explaining the opportunities and risk of holding precious metals. They are ready to answer your questions at 800-686-2237. Again, that's 800-686-2237. And we are getting very, very close to the big election coming up here. And, well, now less than 2 weeks away, a week and a half away. Just amazing times that we certainly live in. Again, I'm Alex Jones, your host. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern. Here are some of the headlines we're going to be covering today that are up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Gulliford, North Carolina voters say ballot cast for Romney came up Obama on machine. We're getting reports of that, of early voting across the country coming up for Obama. Also, will anonymous bomb threat throw election for Obama? We've learned that there are specific bomb threats by so-called anonymous, probably provocateurs posing as hackers because it's anonymous, saying that they plan to bomb government buildings with high-powered explosives before the election. And that dovetails with another anonymous call, which is a perfect cutout to demonize all hackers. That's the problem with anonymous, is they call it anonymous, then the government can project whatever they want onto that name. There is a call to march on Washington the day before the election, November 4th and 5th, and to storm it and basically have, well, they expect to be shot and die. This is clearly a provocateur operation. We've now learned, tracking this last few days before we reported on it, Paul Watson and I, that this has been going on for a month and is gaining steam with a lot of talk show hosts and people calling for storming, calling for the support on the march and the storming. Different internet personalities and people, and either they're useful idiots or they're operatives. The reason it leans towards operatives, whoever's anonymously doing this and others, is this started a month ago. This call that's gained steam to storm the White House the day before the election, obviously to try to make the White House look like a victim and to have an excuse to bring in some type of emergency. Doug Hagman of the Northeast Intelligence Network, who does have some really good police and military sources, has said months ago on this show that there's a plan to try to stir up riots before the election, not even after. We see massive preparation for civil unrest in this country. The 1.2, 1.4, then 1.6 billion bullets bought this year. We see the military digging in. We see the military admitting they're preparing for civil unrest. I hope this doesn't happen. The globalists can also hype all this fear and then use it as just an excuse to clamp down more and more in general. It's kind of internal propaganda. They give different police, what they call in authoritarian systems, security forces. What they give the paramilitary security forces is a back channel propaganda to get them all hyped up on edge and believing that there are all these threats that don't exist. So we're going to be going over all of that today. Will anonymous bomb threat and threat to storm the White House, and of course the real anonymous folks have distanced themselves from this, but it doesn't matter because anytime something's, quote, anonymous, then you can have good people involved, bad people, but the government can go in, or other groups, provocateur things to demonize the entire movement, say, of hackers. It's very legitimate and a great counterbalance to big corporations and government. It's kind of like people say, well, are you for Occupy Wall Street or are you against Occupy Wall Street? Well, you notice that Adbusters and other groups connected to George Soros and the globalists, who have a lot of laudable goals on the surface, they began to call months before, let's occupy Wall Street on this date. And then it was kind of nebulous. We're against the corruption. Then people show up by the tens of thousands in every major city. The media hypes it. Then the Democrats come in and try to co-opt it. They want it to be grassroots, but then co-opted. It didn't work. First, you had Obama endorsing it. When it didn't work and they woke up and were against Obama and the Republicans and the system and started criticizing the corrupt elements of Wall Street, not just capitalism in general, but the crony people, the monopolists, well, then in 35-plus cities, was it 35 in one night, they had federally run raids coming into the city and ordering the city. Now is the time. In Denver and Portland and Dallas and New York, everywhere. Now go in and billy club people. Now go in and beat them up. Now, again, this has all been a coordinated operation. So they're projecting the term anonymous, giving it massive attention when people call themselves anonymous, so they can build it up and also use it as a cyber threat to have the Pentagon and globalists publicly take over the web that they built to begin with. So that's really the process that is happening right there. Very important article, because even ABC News said the White House could run some type of October surprise. Romney could as well, but he isn't in office. He doesn't have that whole apparatus at his fingertips, though there are neocons that support Romney who are embedded at different levels. And even though they all agree on the same policies when it comes to geopolitical activities that Obama does, they want the power. So even though they're in the same team, basically, or in the same league, they're from different teams, is a better way to say it. But they're in the same league. Will anonymous bomb threat throw election for Obama? We've got Joe Curl, who writes for the Washington Times, White House correspondent. He was at the last debate that they had Monday night. We're going to get him on to break that down for about 20 minutes. Then Bev Harris on the reports. You guys, I forgot, I'm sorry. Will you pull me the stack of election fraud news out yesterday? That Forbes article about Hardiner Civic being bought out by the trust, the Romney Trust, that a lot of the votes in the country are going to be cast on. I think that's important as well. We're seeing fraud by both sides, or what could be construed as chicanery or impropriety. I mean, I think it's improper if you're in politics to own voting machine companies. Conflict of interest would be the proper term there. We're going to be talking to her coming up as well at the start of the next hour. But a YouTube threat to bomb government buildings, along with a plan by other members of Anonymous to storm the White House and Congress in an attempt to arrest government officials, not government servants, officials, the day before the presidential election could prove and provide the crisis for Barack Obama to secure a second term. And then he has the quotes in here by White House advisors, saying, if we don't have a new Oklahoma City or 9/11, we're not going to be able. Remember Robert Shapiro said that in Financial Times of London? We're not going to be able to get Obama reelected. And any type of big staged event, a war, a new conflict, a terror attack, a storming of the White House or an attempt, anything like that would make Obama and his cohorts look like victims, and they are the prime suspects, and they have a history of doing Fast and Furious and other events. So again, they are prime, absolute prime suspects in all of this. This is an excellent article that Paul Joseph Watson put out this morning that I worked on with him, and it's got all the points in it. You need to get this out to everybody, folks. Will anonymous bomb threat and will anonymous bomb threat and storming of the White House plans should probably be the headline, but I understand it needs to be short and sweet. So go read the article. We'll get to more of that after Joe Curl is on with us ahead of Bev Harris. This is some devastating news. We were following this case so often I can read the profile of somebody in the news and guess they're a listener. We're talking to her lawyer. I'm guessing she's a listener. Poor lady. She was trying to fly out of Tennessee. They wanted to touch her daughter's genitals, and she said no, so they arrested her. And we've seen some attempts at this as well, saying if you film, they'll arrest you, even though it's legal and lawful. They have to admit that on their own TSA website. Or to say it's disorderly conduct, if you try to leave. We've seen them threaten to fine people where you can just leave. But then they don't tell you when you leave, they try to fine you. Now, that's been thrown out of court, but they found a simpering jury of bootlickers. Mom found guilty by court after refusing TSA pat-down of daughter. You know, the word pat-down is wrong. It is a groping. Remember 3 years ago when we first started really breaking this? Our articles, you know, almost every day on Drudge for a few months became the biggest story in the country. Thanks to DrudgeReport.com getting it out there and our reporters breaking it down. And they'd say, we don't touch your genitals, not even on the outside. Show them going in the pants. We don't take you in private rooms. We don't strip search old ladies. They got caught lying the entire time. This is the incredible corruption that we're talking about. And the system has to get this done because this is the takeover army. The TSA now certifies your local police that they can now grope you. It's like the TSA brown shirts, wave a magic wand, and get ready for your proctology exam. A woman who stood up to TSA screeners and refused to allow them to grope her 14-year-old daughter has been found guilty of disorderly conduct and sentenced to 1 year of probation by a court in Tennessee. Yeah, when tyrants rule, patriots rot in filthy jails. Forget that exact quote. You guys search that. When tyrants prevail, or when patriots rot in filthy jails, I think is the full quote is treason is treason unless there be treason. Well, we'll get the full quote. Back in July of 2011, Andrea Fornella Abbott of Clarksville was arrested in Nashville Airport. Oh, yeah, we're on the radio in Nashville. You can, on 2 stations, you can bet WNOX and also Harry Grothson's awesome Truth Radio. Authorities for expressing outrage at the TSA procedures. You know, in Hellraiser, when they chop you up, it's called a procedure. A police report stated that Abbott would not allow her daughter to be touched inappropriately or have her crotch grabbed. Well, you don't talk back to God. Maybe you need to be tasered. Abbott also refused to submit to a full body scan, which they admit gives you cancer, saying that she did not want her or her daughter's naked bodies revealed by the scanner. How dare, what do you think you are, an America lady? Of course you get groped and body scanned in land of the coward, home of the slave. The report noted she attempted to take a cell phone video of the incident, but was prevented from doing so by TSA gods. Oh yeah, you don't film them. Well, we'll get back with the rest after this. I mean, how dare you?
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Yes, this is a quote I know that's been around for hundreds of years. Author is unknown, but it was widely circulated during the revolutionary period of treason against the British rulers back in the 1770s, 1780s. No man escapes when freedom fails. The best men rot in filthy jails. And those that cried, appease, appease, are hanged by those they tried to please. Let me say that again. This is something that, you know, George Washington heard in the air when he decided to march up against the greatest military the world had ever seen with a ragtag band that was untested. An empire that had beaten the French, beaten the Spanish, beaten them all, beaten the Portuguese, beaten the Austrians, beat them all, but marched up against them. No man escapes when freedom fails. The best men rot in filthy jails. And those that cried, appease, appease, are hanged by those they tried to please. That's right. Author unknown. I'd tweet that, but it's too long. And that's what it comes down to. And I know TSA is going to be on every street corner and every mall. I saw them on C-SPAN say it. People are like, oh, stop fear-mongering, Alex. Well, they'll never be on the streets. They're now popping up in Austin, Texas. They were at ACL Fest. I've talked to people that saw it, and we're now taking photographs, our own Adon Salazar, of them in South Austin yesterday walking around with TSA trucks. That's on our Twitter, Real Alex Jones. And they are meant to dominate you. They are meant to line you up and put their hands on you. The system knows 90+% of citizens are not, quote, criminal. But they've got to induct us into the criminal system and get us used to line up, give me your papers, and by the way, I'm taking you behind closed doors, and by the way, I'm putting my hands on you. You ready? I'm going to touch your genitals. You ready for this? And it's always more. First, take your shoes off. First, take your coat off. Take your belt off. Just like people going into, you know, Nazi death camps. Take your shoes off. Take your clothes off. And they find people that are compartmentalized. They really think they're fighting terrorists. Al-Qaeda publicly works for the government. A mother says, you're not going to grab my 14-year-old daughter and take her away and grope her body. Don't do that. And they started doing it. She said, stop, and pulled her camera out. So they had the police arrest her and call it disorderly conduct to say, don't do that, and try to tape it. When the TSA's own website says you can film them for legal reasons, they have to say that because it's a, quote, public place. They're filming you. You have a right. Oh, let us secretly do something to you. Remember this year they got caught lying, saying we don't take the clothes off of all women. And then when they got caught, they said, well, we don't call that strip search when we take their clothes off. Okay? And now truck drivers all over the country are sending us photos and video. It's all over YouTube, where they're pulling up to checkpoints with Army, dogs, state police, and TSA are there in charge. And they're like, get out of your truck. And if they got a bumper sticker about freedom or something, they're like, what is that? I mean, they want you to know, you American trash. How dare you be against the New World Order? And they want, you got a problem? And I've seen these videos and news articles. They'll have state police and those Marine Corps drill sergeant hats. I mean, they're in a rock-ready stance. They're like, get up against that truck. I mean, they hate us. They hate us. They hate us. This is a criminal, authoritarian takeover, ladies and gentlemen. And again, police and military that aren't traitors, you've got to decide what side you're on. Because I've seen footage of Fallujah checkpoints, and they didn't treat the Iraqis with this much disrespect because they knew it would cause them to revolt. They would just, come on, we're going to do this easy now. We're taking your daddy to Abu Ghraib. We're going to take your little kids, too. You know, load them up, boom. And the troops doing it weren't psychopaths, most of them, but the people at the dungeon were. And the Army's own report, just type in Army report on Abu Ghraib abuse is what they call it. You'll get Associated Press, Reuters. It's about 30 pages long, and I dare you to read it. The Army admits raping of children with battery acid and large objects. Raping of children, raping of the detainees with battery acid. How they did it I mean, folks, they were ordered to do this. So you need to understand, they're building an army of dungeon keeper Jeffrey Dahmers for our families. They got paramilitary hit teams if you resist, who just like to go hunting humans and like the adrenaline. They've got the pedophile abuser corps once you get to the dungeons. They've got just the general cops to write tickets and raise money. It's like an ant hive or something, an ant hill or a beehive or a wasp's nest. They've got their specialized drones. They've got the whole thing worked out. They've got their soldier ants. They've got their attendant ants that serve the Queenies, the Janet Napolitanos. And folks, it's so horrible to know this. And this mother and the jury said, guilty. You don't videotape and you let them grab your daughter's genitals. Is that clear? You're not an America anymore. Scum American. We'll do what we want. I'm going to cover this after she leaves us and then open the phones up. This is really a hoax because the CNBC and the media are announcing we're removing the naked body X-ray machines. No, they just have even more expensive backscatter that they've had scientists all over the news say breaks up your DNA. In some cases, may be worse than the classical X-rays. But if you go to drudgereport.com, we also have it up at Infowars.com, you can see the miscreant. Big Sis, Janet Napolitano, Big Sis pulls naked body scanners. And I guess technically you could say that's true because it's, these type, but they're being sent to the smaller airports to now basically roast the people that are working there. And I happen to know from good transportation people who are in management and also some former TSA people that quit over it. In fact, guys, I don't even have to say it from sources. Will you guys print me the cancer cluster at Boston Logan? It's like Boston Globe articles from a year ago, and there's a bunch of them. So I have that data pack when I get to this. It's not just my memory. The point is they're upset, and they've had meetings, and they go, hey, we think being around these X-ray machines all day are bad for us. Really? You think it might be a little bad for you there? I've shown the local Fox News piece out of upstate New York. I've also seen one out of Oregon where They just have on the highways big mobile trucks with huge X-ray wands that are so powerful. I've had radiologists on. They're at least 10 times more powerful than a powerful chest X-ray. They have you drive under it. At least with the Border Patrol, it's in shielding. They put trucks on it, get back. It's in a room, and then there's a conveyor belt that moves the truck or car through it to be X-rayed. That's how they've had them for 30-something years. Now they just have National Guard or TSA idiots. And I'm not against the poor National Guard or even the poor TSA people, but they are idiots. I mean, if I was 14 years old and people told me run an outdoor giant X-ray machine, I'd go, well, why does the dentist get behind the wall when he gives me an X-ray and put a lead shield over my huevos, my kikis? I mean, it's real simple here. I mean, I probably, when I was 10 years old, would know not to do this. In fact, I've got to do a newscast, maybe for tonight or tomorrow night's news. I'm doing the whole news tomorrow. I may do it tomorrow night. Where we need to go and pull, it's like Fox News, like 4 years ago out of upstate New York, where it shows even the type of unit. We were able to look it up with these big wands off the backs of trucks, and they're standing around in broad daylight, National Guard, not at the borders, in the middle of the country, going, all right, drive under it. And it's like, this system lets us see guns or drugs, and it shows shots of, mock guns in cars. You can see the guns in the trunk. Newsflash, folks. X-rays that can shoot through metal are real bad for you. I don't know if I need to. I mean, I laugh about this. This is just crazy. So it is not the public angry at these naked body scanners that did this. They started having cancer clusters. They put them in 10 years ago at Boston, Logan, and 4 other airports. All 5 airports have cancer clusters 7 times or higher. I mean, it's a death warrant. You work there a couple years around these X-ray machines, you're going to die. They're getting cataracts. They're going blind. Their gums are bleeding. Oh, I got TSA listening right now going, is that why I got cataracts? Get out of there. Get away from them. That's why they're pulling them.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.